Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm just going to go ahead and get into this today and start with a disclaimer. So for any of you under the age of 18, this is not a video for you. For any of you who are sensitive to topics that I'm going to be speaking about today, which includes child endangerment, and some other things, it's time to click off. Disclaimer, everything that I have done here has been researched and I will leave my links down below. But I can say, to an extent, some of this is alleged, but not most of it. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Myka and James Staffer. They are a YouTube blog family who adopted a child from China and basically rehomed him, or as an adoption person would say, displaced. And he has a new home, supposedly now. So, the reason I'm talking about this now, I didn't want to even talk about this particular situation because I thought it was just horrid. I mean, it's very, very clear that these two people are sociopaths. In my opinion, I'm not a doctor, okay, but it feels like they're sociopathic, and the fact that they seemingly adopt a child with special needs from China and used him on their YouTube platform for clout, for views, that seem to be the case, and the majority of the people agree with this situation. All of a sudden, this little child, who I will not name, his name's out there. I'm not going to show pictures. Those pictures are out there, but this kid's already been through enough. So, this child, this little boy, who was adopted from China and became part of the Stratford clan for a short amount of time, about 2 years, was kicked out of the house. And it had been over a month before anybody had seen anything about this child on social media. Now, normally that wouldn't be a big deal for most people, but since this woman, Myka, posted, Instagram, Twittered, all her social media was completely revolving around this child, to not see him for a month is weird. And finally, this couple, Myka and James, had to make a video trying to explain that they had rehomed him and now he's with his new mommy. So here's my deal. I am a child advocate. I have spoken about this before on this channel. I have never gone into details about what I do, and I never will, because for safety reasons. But this opened up a whole can of worms. And as horrific as this must be for that child, I know for a fact many children go through the same thing. This is something on a trafficking level that is not talked about. So I want everyone to be on the same page with me here. The reason I am speaking about this is because Myka and James very well could have done an illegal adoption, rehoming the child. Even though the states had looked into it, I believe it was California that looked into it, it was legal. Because of international adoptions, there is a gray area that happens once the child is adopted. It is very easy for that child to be lost in a system that doesn't exist, meaning black market. So I want everyone to understand that the possibility of this little boy that they brought over being a black marketed adoption for his next step, whatever happened, is probable. I hope that's not the case, but it very well could be. So when we think about child trafficking right now, everybody's minds go to Epstein and Maxwell. Fine. But I want you to get that image out of your mind, because that's just two people. You see, trafficking is a worldwide $1 billion business. There is trafficking everywhere, every city, every state, every place on the planet. And they are not all these rich people who own an island. I call this such a facade because people believe that those who are trafficking have a lot of money. And most of the time, very, very few people who are doing the trafficking actually make the bundle of money. There is a hierarchy, just like there is in any other business. And as sick as it is comparing it to any other business, it's true. People are a bigger human commodity than drugs. The average person, like I have said before, costs $90. But right now, because of the pandemic, you can get a human for $40. Because of this situation, you might get a kid for free. So I've done a lot of research about underground black market adoption. These sites are out there for anyone to access. I will name a few of them, but don't be surprised if they aren't there when you go and research this. If you do, research this. This is just like Hydra. Cut off one head, 3 grow in its place. So even though one of these sites might be taken down, 10 more will pop up. That's how it works. You know, I have worked diligently with a group of people to help with these types of situations, but most of the time you cannot keep up because you change a letter, you change a phrase, you change whatever. It just happens. Facebook especially, Facebook and TikTok especially, is so easy. It's so easy to become anonymous and put up a site and have it encoded and then be gone in 5 seconds. That's all it took. That's all it took for damage to be done. And if you don't believe me, go down the rabbit hole yourself. You don't have to believe me. But I'm going to present you some evidence today. So, this adoption most likely was not done through legal channels. The first adoption seems like it was. Private adoption in the United States and in Canada is extremely difficult and expensive. If you go through a private adoption process in the United States, you are limited by several things, and that includes whatever that particular private adoption agency wants to limit. For instance, if you are not Christian, if you are gay or lesbian or bi or trans, you're part of the LGBTQ plus channel. If you're part of the LGBTQ plus family, you are not eligible. If you are atheist, if you are too tall, if you want a mixed race child, if you want a black child, if you know, it's disgusting. But that's how it is. So, what are the numbers? How many kids are available for adoption in the United States? The foster care system currently has 442,000 children. 442,000 children are currently in the foster system. Of those, 100,000 are waiting to be adopted. 62% of those kids, of those 100,000, will get adopted. The rest of those children in foster care are fostered to go back to home. Usually the Average amount of a child being in the foster care system, if it has to do with a situation with a family, is 13 months. Some of these kids will never ever get adopted and they will be aged out of the system. More girls than boys are adopted both in the United States and Canada at 87%. And the average price to adopt a child through a private agency is anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 per child. Now, the foster to adopt system is different. You are fostering a child through the state, and there is foster to adopt, but that is actually a smaller percentage than what is just a straight out adopt or to straight out foster. Just to kind of keep that in mind. People are desperate for children. And one of the biggest red flags that will come off to you if you are looking at any of these sites that are claiming to be adoption support groups or anything like that, if they have children that are majority of these children are Caucasian, that's a problem. The majority of the children throughout the world who are up for adoption by legal means are from China. After that, India and Pakistan. Very, very few of these children who are available to actually adopt legally are Caucasian. So these are 3-4 sites that I've taken a look at, and I'm going to redo some of the information that I got straight from these sites. They're horrific, just to let you know. The 3-4 sites that I have today that I looked into were Adopt a Child Today, Adopt a Child from South Africa, Adopt a Child from India, Adopt a Child, on and on and on. But I looked about 4 of those. Let's give you some examples of some of the things that are on there. Twins needed adopted ASAP. PM me for details. I got my son homebound thanks to this platform. Hey, how much did that cost you? It was a total of $2,000 USD. Tell me more. I have a guy who was signed his daughter over for $800. He's willing to travel to adopt. Will that help you? Yes, PM me. Cats. I'm looking for a baby. I'm married and I can't have kids. I'm here. I'll give you a child. PM me for details. Can you tell me how to get this kid? Is this a religious website? They all seem to have the same nose. I'm looking for someone to adopt my 7-month-old baby. Give it to me. I'll PM you for details. For a baby girl to adopt. Serious inquirers only. I'm willing to pay. Please adopt my baby. I'm from, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, and I'm sorry, Marisage. Please adopt my baby. I'm from the Philippines. Please adopt my baby. I'm from Rattensburg. Please adopt my baby. I'm from India. And more, and more, and more. Please adopt my baby. So there is money exchanging hands on these sites while private. And while 2 of these sites disguise themselves as a kind of a help to give some people articles of what to know when you're adopting, what to expect, maybe how to help adopted and biological children get along, those are actually things on these sites that make them look legitimate. But these are just sites that are literally for adoption. I want to explain where trafficking comes in. Now, if you guys don't understand, trafficking is, of course, not just sex slaves. It's not just drugs. It's military, it's human labor, it's forcing people to do things that they don't want to do. Many of these children are the product of trafficking. So that means they are either from women that are being prostituted out and they are pregnant. They have to get rid of the baby because they are in a trafficking situation themselves. These children are kidnapped. They are taken from poor women, third world countries, and other things like that, and placed up for adoption. Many of these children actually have moms and dads, especially in South Africa. These children were forcibly taken from their families and put up for basically an underground adoption. Now, the reason I bring up South Africa is in a crisis right now with females, which is so bad. The abuse is so terrible there, and the government is stepping in. Many of these women are forced to give up their babies or to hide these babies, especially if they're females, because it is literally too dangerous to be a female in South Africa. Trafficking is real. Trafficking is something that happens all of the time. It is not just Epstein and Maxwell. It's not just these big rich people who participate. These are people who are your neighbors, your friends, maybe even some of your family. It's not as big as some people make it out to be, with the millions of dollars on yachts and private islands and things like that. There's a very, very, very dark world that exists of trafficking that nobody benefits off of it except a few people. They run their own thing. They don't have other people to answer for. But there are people who are in trafficking because they have to kidnap these kids. Understand that this is a very deep, very sad, and disgusting reality that we live in. And because of Myka and James Staffer's story, it took me this long to really research it and to really know how to talk about it. And I know I'm rambling to an extent, but I want you to understand the message here. What they did was stupid and dangerous. But there was a part of this that might have some good. Because I don't believe in cancel culture. Until now. Those two have made money off of their child that they adopted. Sounds like that's trafficking. Yeah, they raised a lot of money. A lot of money through their viewers, through donations, to get this child adopted. Well, Myka was shown to have $1,000 watches, $100,000 purses, and they went to a trip to Bali without their boy that mysteriously disappeared. And it must have been so tough for them to not have that child anymore that they couldn't grasp it, couldn't cope. So they had to take a family vacation to Bali for a month that their viewers paid for through their donations. I want you all to understand that this is something called social media trafficking. They trafficked their child. They profited off of him. The whole adoption journey started before they ever should have done anything. Meaning they were putting out information about this little boy before the steps had even started. Just the beginning. Social media from day one with this child. I couldn't be more disgusted. She was sharing things that anybody else, it would have disqualified them from adoption. And she was doing it very publicly. There are things that you need to do when you are adopting to protect the identity of the child, especially if something happens. They put it everywhere. Like I said, I will put my sources in the description box. I am trained in this area. This is something that's extremely important to me. And this is something that I am willing to fight tooth and nail for. And I seriously hope that something good comes out of this. And for Myka and James, I hope there's investigation on you. I hope someone can save your children from you. And I hope you never get the chance to adopt again. All right, guys. There's nothing good to say after this except keep your eyes open, be smart, be safe, and I'll see you later.